Hey y'all, welcome back to another Real Housewives of Atlanta review. This is season 16, episode 17. This is the season finale episode, you guys. I'm Charmaine. Welcome to my channel. You know how I do over here. We're going to jump right into it. So the scene opens up with Portia and her sister Lauren. They're arriving at Phaedra's house. They're going to see Phaedra. As we may all know, those of us who have been watching this season, we know that Portia and Lauren lost their cousin Londi, aka Yolanda, or whatever. And you know, we've seen her throughout the show here. Well, not necessarily this season. They kind of did like a flashback, but we have seen her in previous seasons, you know, throughout previous seasons. And even when Portia had her own show, you know, we saw Londi a lot on Portia's show. But anyway, I'm not going to spend too much time on it because it is rather sad. But like I said, we see Lauren and Portia arriving at Phaedra's house. They are going to Phaedra's house because Phaedra is now this, you know, the next best thing, you know, when helping plan funerals in Atlanta. So obviously Portia called Phaedra for assistance, you know, when helping planning a funeral for her cousin or whatever. And then we learn that Lauren was actually on the phone with Londi when, you know, she was transitioning. You know, I mean, they didn't, you know, further elaborate on that, but Lauren was on the phone with Londi talking to her, I guess, you know, like everything was normal, and then things happened to take a turn for the worst. And Portia says she got the call while she was at work, and within about an hour or two, Londi was, you know, pronounced deceased or whatever. And so that's just very unfortunate because, like I said in my last review, Londi was super young. She was only like 34, 35 years, or 35 or 36 years old. I think this year would have been her 36th year. So yeah, you know, like I said, I'm not going to spend too much time on that, but it is rather sad. You could tell Lauren has been going through it ever since, child. So that was that. Rest in peace to Londi. Then we move on to see Angela going to visit her therapist, her and Charles's therapist, but she's actually going by herself this time. So she goes to see her therapist, and, you know, she sits down and talks to her therapist about, you know, I guess the recent stressors that have been bothering her, weighing her down, mostly the homes that, you know, have not been selling. The homes that Angela owns, they haven't been selling. We know that. If you've been watching this season, you know that she's been having a hard time, you know, selling these homes. So, and it's been taking a toll on their finances, mainly Charles's, because she did say that Charles pretty much, you know, every time she needs more money to put into these houses, he's the one to do it. So, and it is also causing a strain on their marriage. So, Angela was just basically like, you know, she's just trying to, like, she wants to get rid of the houses. She wants to just let them go, you know, let whatever happen to it. And she just, unfortunately, will be losing out on her money, you know. So that's the downside of it or whatever when you get into, like, you know, real estate and stuff like that. This is why, and I'm not saying in Angela's case, you know, that she didn't know what she was doing, but I know a lot of people, you know, that I have come across in my lifetime, like, their main thing is real estate. They want to buy properties. They think it's just like this easy one to, you know, process. And then once you get the homes, you know, you think you're going to be good to go. You're going to, yes, you know, obviously, that's a great way of creating another stream of income, and it's also a great way of creating generational wealth within your family if you got kids, grandkids, so on and so forth. But it's not for everybody, and it's definitely not for the weak. Everybody's not cut out to own properties, you know, because at times like this, at least I know the people that I've come across who always stated that this is something they wanted to do. I couldn't imagine them in a situation like this where they bought up a couple properties and none of the properties are selling, or, you know, they're just having a hard time with tenants or whatever the case. The people I know that, you know, like I keep saying, who want to be in real estate and stuff, they wouldn't last. They would break. And again, you have to, just like I feel like with anything else, you have to have a knack for things. You have to have a passion for it. You have to have a drive, and most importantly, you have to have common knowledge and then some of, you know, these certain careers or you know, other things that you want to, you know, try to do in life. So it's just not a walk into it and everything, you know, is all hunky-dory. You know, it's not easy at all. And watching Angela, you know, go through it with her properties, I think she got like, what, 5 of them? I could be wrong on the number, but she definitely has more than 3. So, and it's just like, the lady is losing out. Well, I'm saying her, but ultimately it's her and her husband Charles. They're losing out on, or lost out on, a lot of money. So, you know, that's been really putting a strain on her marriage. She talks about with her therapist. She also brings up to the therapist, you know, what happened at Kelly's cook-off with her and Charles, and the guy coming in, I think his name was Marcus, you know, and telling her that, you know, her man has been cheating on her. He came in the restaurant with another woman, and stuff like that. So the therapist had asked her, you know, well, do you trust Charles, or have you trust, you know, something like that, about, she wanted to know, do she trust Charles, you know? And she's just like, you know, well, I haven't, you know, in the past, I didn't trust him, you know, but moving forward these days, she said she trusts him, you know, and he trusts her and stuff. So, you know, but as we see later on down in the episode, it absolutely did bother Angela what was said. Whether she believed it or not, it absolutely bothered her. Because we know that this is nothing new to Angela. We talked about this in another review where I did. You know, this is nothing new to Angela. Angela has been with Charles, married to him for 10 years now, but been with him for 10 years. So she knows her man. This is nothing new. This is not her first rodeo. She knows Charles, you know, used to be out there. And she chose to stay in the marriage with him and ride it out. So here they are, you know. And unfortunately, if this is in fact true, that he's still out there dipping and stepping on her, you know, I don't know. I mean, you know, some women would consider women who get cheated on and stay and still be that face for you know, be that face and put on that face, I should say, as the wife. And some people consider women like that strong women. That's not strong at all. That's a weak woman, okay? Because a strong woman such as myself, we would never, ever, ever, ever put up with that ish. The first time I get word that you cheated on me, or get knowledge that you cheated on me, you're done. We're done. You're not going to get a second chance. It's just not going to happen. Not with me. And I feel like that comes from strength. That's what you consider a strong woman. A woman who knows her worth. A woman who is not validated by her man. A woman who, you know, knows that she's the ish, she's the prize, she's the freaking, you know, I'm the trophy. Okay, like, my self-esteem, I'm speaking about me personally, and I'm pretty sure there are other women out there who could relate to me as well. My self-esteem is too high. Okay, there's no way a man could ever play me like that. It's just not happening. So, and I'm just saying, like, but like I said, a lot of the time they deem women who stand by their man and stick beside him, even though he dogs them out every chance he gets. They consider women like that strong. But I'm here to tell you, that's not a strong woman at all. That's a weak woman. And I'm not saying that Angela's weak, because Angela definitely has weak ways, because she's still with Charles. Okay, I don't care if it's money involved. No amount of money in the world could keep me in a relationship and my man is stepping out on me. It's just, again, my self-esteem is too high. I can't, I know I'm you know, like, I don't have an issue getting someone else. So it's not, and not saying that she does either, but at the end of the day, my confidence level is too on 1,000 for me to be ever letting somebody play with me like that. You got a one and done. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. There's no mistakes. There's no, oh, she didn't mean nothing. It didn't mean nothing. You could tell that to her, okay? Because it's a wrap from day one. Anyway. And that goes along with other type of, you know, that women put up with in relationships. One and done for me. Actually, you don't even get the D word, you know, the DV. You don't even get no chances. You don't get a one with that. If you breathe hard in my direction, baby, you might as well get the stepping. Okay, pack your and get out the door, because that's where you going. You don't get a chance to do anything further than that with me. Anyway, y'all, this is not about me, so we're gonna move this right along. Back to what I was saying. Angela, you know, she kind of got emotional when she's sitting and talking to her therapist, because she's just like, you know, she's starting to want to fight back. You know, before she used to let the rumors and things like that just fall by the wayside, but she's kind of tired of being poked all the time. She's tired of people poking at her and her husband, and she just wants them to leave her the F alone. You know, leave us alone. And I feel like that's what they should, because again, the woman done told us earlier in the season that, you know, there's nothing that somebody could tell me about my man or my marriage like that I haven't either been through, either I haven't been through it already, or, you know, I don't know about it, or whatever the case. Like, there's nothing you can do to break what they have. So I don't understand why, you know, people are walking around trying to do so. But yeah, and when I say people, I don't even think it's the people in the group, to be honest. But at the end of the day, you know, she just basically was saying, you know, she's just trying to save her marriage and stuff, you know, get rid of these homes because it's putting a strain on their relationship, their marriage, and, you know, and their finances and stuff like that. Charles is getting tired. She even mentioned that Charles told her not to, you know, get all these properties, and she didn't listen to him. She didn't trust him, you know, in that area. And now look what happened. So she's feeling really, really bad about it. And like I said, it kind of made her emotional and stuff. And she just feels like she wants to be left alone. But from here on out, she's going to fight you tooth and nail when it comes to her man and her marriage, honey. So that's why we see her trying to get to the bottom of who this Marcus dude was, who sent him, why he was saying XYZ. So then we see Shamia has a performance, y'all. It's more like a little concert. I feel like Shamia, I thought she was going to perform 1 or 2 songs, honey. She damn near did a whole album. She damn near had a whole concert, you know. And I think she did okay. You know, she did okay for it to be like, I'm assuming this is her first real showcase. You know, and I think she did good. All of the ladies came to support her. Cynthia had to leave, so Cynthia sat down good, and she got up to go catch her flight, child. And then you see Britt, you know, coming and speaking to everybody except Kelly. She skipped right over Kelly, and in my opinion, she did the right thing. Because you could tell Kelly was sitting there waiting for her to speak again so that she could ignore her again. Like, that's what I got from it. But, you know, Britt ignored Kelly and kept it pushing. She spoke to who speaks to her, you know, and hugged and kissed who hugs and kisses her, you know, and that was it. She ain't had nothing to say to Kelly. So anyway, like I said, Shamia, you know, she performed. She looked really nice. I think she did a pretty decent job, you know, and it was nice. You know, she had a cute little crowd there and stuff to cheer her on and stuff. Her little baby Shia got on stage at the end, you know, and her husband brought her some roses on stage. That was cute. That was nice. So then you see all the ladies go backstage. Once the show is over, they go backstage and they're mingling and talking to one another. And of course, you know, it wouldn't be them without starting some ish at somebody's event. Angela had asked, you know, ask the ladies did they get their invites for her event, her upcoming event, which is the Meals on Wheels. That her and Charles, I guess they do this every year, or, you know, every so often throughout the year. And, you know, the lady said, yeah, they got it and stuff like that. So somebody had asked Kelly, I think it was Drew, had asked Kelly, you know, because I guess they were sitting there talking about, you know, how to promote it, and just like they was telling Angela, you know, let me know, you know, what I could do, you know, So Drew goes to, and she asked Kelly, you know, how many followers do she have? And Kelly was like 150. And then Drew was like, K? And she's like, yeah, 150K. So then Britt chimes in, being shady, and she's like, well, she's talking about, we're not talking about fake followers. You gain 80,000 followers in one day. Like, that's not real, you know. So Kelly goes, well, I didn't know somebody was stalking me and stalking my page and stalking me like that. So Britt was like, I mean, well, we were close, you know. So, and Kelly was like, yeah, so you wanted to see what your competition was, or you wanted to be in competition. So they kind of briefly, very briefly, thank goodness, you know, had words back and forth or whatever. But it was very brief because Angela broke it up. The rest of the girls, you know, broke up the little bickering between them too. So then we see Shamia, you know, wanting to talk to Britt again. And she wants to talk to Britt because apparently Cynthia was the one who came back and told Shamia what Britt said once when she was at Britt's house about Shamia. About Shamia showing her text messages to Britt about Portia, you know, the messages between her and Portia, showing them to Britt. And Cynthia felt the need to go back and carry that bone back to Shamia and let Shamia know what all was said back at the house, child. So Shamia calls herself confronting Britt about it. And Shamia, in my opinion, Shamia just kept denying it. She did mention, you know, that is a lie. But the way Shamia just kept trying to cut Britt off when Britt was trying to tell her, you know, it's not a lie. You absolutely did show me those messages. You know, you absolutely was talking ish behind Portia's back. That time when me, you, and Kelly went out, that's when it happened, you know, XYZ. And Shamia just kept trying to cut her off. Anytime a person won't let you speak when the heat is on them, and you trying to provide your receipts, or you trying to speak your truth, and they constantly cut you off, that's, you know, they lying. You know that they're lying, and they're not going to take accountability. They're going to, you know, sit up there and deflect. And that's to me exactly what Shamia was doing. Shamia was deflecting all day. Okay, because for some reason I just don't believe that Britt just pulled that out of thin air. Like, why would she say that you show her messages, and then she said what one or two of the messages said? How would she know that? Especially if it's messages that she originally thought were between Portia and her attorney. But it come to find out it was true, because Portia even said that those messages were not between me and my attorney. It was between me and my therapist. So that right there lets you know that that Britt didn't lie about it, because Portia confirmed that those messages that Britt spoke of did happen, but it was not with an attorney. It was just with her therapist. So Shamia, how is Britt lying? And Portia confirmed, like, that was said in the message. We did, you know, text about that, but why would she tell you that? And why would Britt just make that up out of the blue? So again, like I said, Shamia just kept on deflecting, and, you know, they ain't get nowhere with that child. So yeah. Shamia starts to talk about how Britt took her clothes off, you know, and Britt owned it. I mean, why was she not? She did it. She was there. It was her decision to do so. So Britt owned it, you know. And then Britt brought up to Shamia, you know, like, you know, well, how about when we got to Miami? I'm assuming they had a layover after they left Grenada, and they still continue to party in Miami, is what I'm getting. I don't know, but at some point they were in Miami, and it was around the time after Shamia had got the news about her daughter being, you know, having a fever, and the nurse leaving her to be cold and XYZ, and how Shamia, you know, put on that. Well, let me change my words. Shamia was very emotional that night when her husband called her, and, you know, all the women rallied around her, you know, for support and stuff. But Britt was like, what about when we was in Miami? You know, you forgot all about your daughter. Like, basically you was out there throwing back shots with Kelly as if you ain't had no sick baby at home. So Shamia took that as Britt trying to say that, you know, it was a lie too about what all was going on with her daughter. Well, that's not what Britt was trying to say. In my opinion, Britt was basically calling her out on, like, you was all so sad the night of, but that shit came and went right out your system as quick, you know, because you was back turning up again like it was nothing, you know. So Shamia kind of called herself dismissing Britt, and, you know, telling her, thank you for wearing your clothes, thank you for keeping your clothes on here. And so Britt, as they was walking away, Britt was like, you know what they saying about you, Shamia, that you have been cheating on, that you've been sleeping around on your husband for a long time. So then Shamia, she's like, girl, well, she's telling her confession, she's sitting in her confessional, and Shamia was like, there have been rumors about me, you know, stepping out on my husband since your kitty cat was a kitten, and we all know that was a long time ago, whatever the case may be. Absolutely, do I believe the rumors? Absolutely. Y'all know I don't know Shamia from a hole in the wall, but I can see Shamia's character. I see how Shamia acts like a horny woman all the time, and, you know, I definitely get that Shamia is not sexually pleased at home. She's not happy sexually at home. She's not, and her actions tells me so. So that's just my opinion. So yes, I do believe that Shamia absolutely stepped out on her husband. But it's shit, we seen her flirting with her chef right in her own home. The chef and her flirting together. Even her mother wasn't feeling that. Remember that episode when she came down and her chef was in the kitchen chefing it up? She asked him, her mother was standing there too, to the island, and she asked him, you know, is there something she could taste that's already ready or something like that, she said. And he was like, you can taste anything you want, you know. And she's like, oh, ooh. And her mother rolled her eyes dead up in her head. I know I wasn't the only one who peeped. Her mother rolled her eyes up in her head, and she walked away. And then her mother came back, and she started up a conversation so she could break that little shit up that was going all over there. She was like, Shamia, what time the girl's supposed to be coming? So yeah, I absolutely can believe that Shamia did. But I don't know Shamia. I don't know that for truth. But at the end of the day, it is definitely not far-fetched. Okay, moving right along, child. So then we move on. We see the little, you know, snippets. Kelly is waking her girls up for her twins up for breakfast. Drew is getting her glam done. And while she's taking her selfies, Ralph decides to FaceTime her from downstairs in the basement, talking about, is it okay if he comes upstairs? She tells the glam team that he does have to get permission to come upstairs in their own house, you know, but we already know how that goes. But Ralph wants to talk all of a sudden. So we see that, and then we go back to Kelly. She's now in the kitchen with all of her daughters. You know, they're in there cooking and making dinner. Her sister actually comes in and joins them, or whatever. So her sister asked her about Sandy Springs location. I think it's called Nana's Kitchen, Nana's Chicken and Waffle, something like that. Y'all know Kelly's restaurant that she's been trying to open, but being that she's been, you know, going through this tumultuous divorce, you know, and you know, every time she goes to get divorced, it just doesn't happen. You know, she's been having a lot of setbacks with it. So she told her sister it's still not up and running. They still got a lot of ways to go with it, and that she's going to chill on trying to open the next location, because technically she's still married. So obviously if she's still married, you still got assets, you know, connected to that person as well. So if she was to open the next business, he would still have some rights to it as well, because they're still married. So her sister had asked, I mean, before that, when they first, you know, got in the kitchen, they first showed us Kelly and the girls in the kitchen. Kelly had asked her daughter, her eldest daughter, what's her name, Chloe. She's 17. She asked Chloe if she could help with the bacon, or did she want to put the bacon in the oven, or did she mind? That's what she asked, do you mind? Because Kelly was like, I do mind. Like Kelly's eldest daughter, Chloe, is never here for Kelly and her shenanigans. Like, she's just never here for it. Like, every time we see them in the scene together, she always getting her mother right together. Okay. Anyway, Mr. Ralph makes his way upstairs, and we see him wanting to play on the piano, child. Oh, my God. I cannot stand Ralph. Ralph is fine as hell, but I just cannot stand men like him. I just can't. And he is absolutely a narcissist. So, now he comes to play in Drew's face. All of a sudden, he wants to talk, and he wants to know, how did we get here? What you mean, how did we get here? Like, what do you mean, Ralph? like, oh my God, I cannot, like, I cannot with men like him. People like him, period, but especially men. Like, how do we get here? You know, now he wants to talk about getting to a place where they could co-parent without arguing, and, you know, just be in a good space with one another. You know, how did we get here? Like, I couldn't believe he sat there and he's playing in Drew's face. Like, what it is that I don't feel like he really wants to get divorced at this time. Like, I really, really don't. I think that this is one of the reasons he keeps holding up the divorce situation, holding up providing his finances and stuff like that. I really believe that Ralph don't want to get a divorce. He just wants to do what he wants to do. He wants to still, you know, be single but married. That's what I feel. Because now that they're asking him for, you know, to show, you know, his assets and to show this, that, I don't think he really want them. Even though I'm pretty sure they already dug deep into, you know, his finances, but obviously they ain't dig deep enough, because he's still, you know, holding out on some things, and it's holding up the process, you know. And I feel like he knows that Drew is very vulnerable. Well, at that time, while they were going through the divorce, Drew was very vulnerable, so he could easily, you know, kind of like manipulate her, you know, and getting back on her good side and trying to get her to let her guards down. And to be honest, I think it's probably worked. I think it's probably worked, because they're still not divorced yet. So with that being said, I doubt very much if they're even going to continue to get divorced, in my opinion. But we'll see what happens at the reunion, child. We'll see what Drew got to say. So then we have Chi-Chi and Phaedra. They're at a winery eating grapes and, you know, tasting different wines and smiling and frolicking and playing with each other. Okay, that's it. That's all with them. We're at Britt's house. Britt and Mark, they have a nice family dinner. Britt has all of her sisters there. Her mother has moved in with them. I forgot all about her mother, child. But her mother did move in with them. You know, she said Britt said she's still getting a little used to her mother being there or whatever the case, but she loves it. And then you see her sisters arriving. You got her oldest sister, because I believe Britt is the middle child, if I'm not mistaken. I believe so. But in any case, you see her two sisters arriving with their family. The one sister, her husband comes, and then you have the one sister, I forget their names. I think one of her sisters' name is Cher, and I forget the other one, unless it's like Tiara or something like that. But anyway, you see Cher is the one with the boys. Like, she has the nephew, Britt's nephews. So they came, and then Mark's side of the family came. His sister came, which we met her too in a previous episode. Same thing, having dinner, child. So her husband and her family came. It was it looked like a really nice family dinner. They all sat down. They had a good kiki or whatever the case. And Britt kind of made an announcement. They all thought she was making an announcement that they are pregnant, and she's like, no, we're not pregnant. But she basically said that her and Mark got married in 2020, so it was just them two, you know. Her mother never got to meet, you know, her in-laws and stuff like that. So that was the time that they chose to do it. Everybody sat down, and they looked like they had a good time. It was really good to see, you know, the ladies and even the men, you know, enjoying themselves. As far as from what we saw, there was no fights, no arguments, nobody got emotional. Everybody was just laughing and getting and enjoying each other's time and company. So that was a really good, wholesome scene. I love that, you know, I love when families just do family things, you know, and not just be at each other's throats and stuff like that. So that was a cute little scene, or whatever. So and then we see the girls, they start arriving at the event, Charles and Angela's event. Everybody, as always, y'all know I always gotta say this because I just always gotta say this. Everybody looks nice. All of the ladies understood their assignments when it came to the dress codes. Even though there wasn't a dress code, but you know there's a dress code. You know where you're going, so you're gonna have to dress the part. So they all looked really, really nice. Everybody looked nice. You see Kelly walking in with her bodyguard, and then her publicist on the other side of her child. You know, Kelly walking through like she had a profile, honey. But so all the ladies gather there, and Charles and Angela tell us that the foundation that they started, the Meals on Wheels Foundation, that they started it back in 2017. You know, they said that they just, you know, they feed high school students, you know, the underprivileged. They fed thousands of people, you know, throughout the country, you know, from old to young, you know, whatever the case may be. So that's a really good thing. So this is a fundraiser actually, and the goal is to raise $50,000. So all the ladies that are attending and everybody else who was in attendance, I'm assuming, you know, they all put in donations or whatever. So you see, you know, everybody taking their pictures on the red carpet and, you know, mingling, and everybody, you know, showing up or whatever the case. So then Cynthia's asking Charles, where is your wife? He like, that's what I'm saying. Like, she's like, ain't no that's what you saying. Where is your wife? So that was funny. But anyway, where Angela was, actually, she was off in a cut calling Drew, trying to figure out where Drew was, because her and Drew, come to find out, were the two people who worked together to, you know, find out more about this Marcus guy. Like, remember the guy who came to Kelly's event, and he, you know, started some bullish, told Angela that Charles came in a restaurant with somebody else. So basically, Drew was in, you know, did work together to get that information, and they are the ones who invited, mainly Angela, invited Marcus to the event. So Drew's late as usual. I guess, you know, Angela was ready to get this thing on the ball, on the, how you call it? Get the ball rolling. Angela was trying to hurry up and get the ball rolling and stuff like that, you know, to get to the bottom of it all. Because remember, I believe it was last episode, she said, we know that Marcus was paid to be there, but we don't know by who, except for it was a man who paid him. That's all we know, is a guy who paid him and or whatever. And she did say that they was going to find out who the guy was. They got a description, but they was going to get to the bottom of who he was. So I guess this was all a part of it, getting to the bottom or whatever, because as we see, Marcus did come, he did arrive, and he arrived with, you know, his friend, I'm assuming, or whatever. And we see a flashback to when Drew and Angela had a sit down with Marcus and his friend. His friend name is Alex. I came across Alex's TikTok this earlier, actually. And Alex basically, he had receipts as well, you know. He basically told, you know, his version of how things went down or whatever. It wasn't different from what Marcus said, but Alex did say that he didn't know when they were at Kelly's cook-off, he didn't know that Marcus was going to do all that. He said he was caught off guard with that as well, you know, because he's like, I don't know none of these people even like that. He's like, so, but he had no idea that Marcus was going to propose a toast and say the things that he said, saying that we're going to toast to you if your name is Angela and your man is cheating on you. He said he was, you know, not expecting that either. And he actually reached out to Angela as well. I'll get to that in a little bit, y'all. But anyway, so they flash it back and they show us when they all four had to sit down, all four of them, meaning Marcus, Angela, Drew, and his friend Alex was at the table. And we see them asking, them meaning Drew and Angela, asking, who is the person that paid you XYZ? So he didn't want to say it out loud, but he texted it on his phone, or he typed it on his phone, and he slid the phone to Angela and them. And Angela saw who it was. And then she showed it to Drew. So then we saw who it was. I mean, they both knew who it was, or who he said it was. So Angela just basically was like, you know, she just want to know, you know, what did she do to that person to make them want to, you know, send somebody for her like that. You know, what did I do to you? So, I mean, anyway, child, as the night goes on, so then you see the ladies go sit down and have dinner, and it's Kelly whispering to Shamia, you know, like saying, you know, I think this is a problem right here, or this is going to be a problem, talking about them two being friends and sitting next to each other the whole time. Britt ain't paying neither one of them no mind. She all the way on the other side of the table telling Portia, you know, that she thinks that Shamia is mad at her now. And Portia's like, for what? And she's telling, you know, told her because of, you know, what was said, I said, blah, blah, blah. And Cynthia's sitting there too. And Cynthia, you know, said to Portia, you know, I'm the one who told her, you know, and she apologized for telling her, girl, what you apologizing for? You know the consequences of when you go running your mouth in this circle. So why would you apologize? You're not sorry, because if you were, you wouldn't have did it in the first place. Like, girl, I don't hate when people do stuff that they already know what the outcome is going to be, but they do it anyway and then want to apologize, you know, for it later on down the line. Like, don't apologize, own your shit, stand 10 toes on it. Yeah, I said it. Yeah, I told her because I felt she needed to know. Like, that's it. Like, what are you apologizing for? Because you're not sorry. Like, I don't want you to be sorry if you're not sorry. Like, and you had a lot of time to not do it before you did it, so you're not sorry either way. So yeah, that's just how I feel about people being sorry, y'all. So the gala gets underway. You know, Charles and Angela, they're honoring, you know, the important ones at the event. One of them actually was Portia, which I was surprised, but they did honor Portia for the work that she does, or does. I was going to say or did, but the work that she does for her grandfather's foundation. And also, Portia dedicated that to her cousin Londi, because she said Londi was very, very instrumental in a huge part of their grandfather's foundation and stuff. So, you know, Portia stood up and she, you know, said a few words or whatever. It got emotional for her. You know, so after she left stage, she went on ahead in the bathroom, you know, and she, you know, I kind of feel like that's when it really hit her. You know, that her cousin was really gone. You know, I mean, obviously we didn't see, you know, scenes prior to that or anything like that, of her grieving or anything like that. So this was the first time we got to see Portia actually, you know, in her feelings about, you know, losing her younger cousin or whatever. So, and it was nice to see that the ladies, you know, rallied around her. Everybody went, you know, in the bathroom with her and made sure she was good and stuff. So it's just really tough, man. Like, I hate death. I really do. But it's just really tough, you know. it's tough. Even to, you know, even if it's not happening to you, but it's happening to someone that you love and care about. It's just like, I know for me, it's always an awkward feeling. It's just like, I'm sad too, of course. I'm feeling it too, but I just don't know how to, I don't know how to I don't know how to act. You know, I don't know how to, I don't know what I'm trying to say either. So we just gonna leave that alone. But, you know, it's just tough. It's very, really tough, and it's very sad, and it's very hard. You know, like I said, seeing somebody that you care about and or love, you know, go through, you know, this type of sadness as it would be for, you know, you yourself. So anyway, so everybody leave and they go to this other area. Angela gets a text. It says your friend is here. Her friend, meaning Marcus, has arrived. And so Angela gathered all the girls. So now they're all sitting down, and this is where, you know, things get going. Okay, so Angela basically, you know, talks to the girls and, you know, lets them know, like, you know, I know y'all all know what happened last week about this guy coming to Kelly's event. So then she looks at Kelly and she's like, I still do find it rather odd, or I found it rather odd that this would happen right in the middle of your event or whatever. So Portia was like, are you saying Kelly has something to do with it? Like, are you blaming Kelly? So you know, and Kelly just was like, I would never, you know, like, and you could tell that Kelly didn't set that issue up, because when he made the toast and Kelly, you know, was standing there waiting for him to finish what he was about to say, and when he said what he said, she automatically reacted. Kelly wasn't here for it, you know, and we have seen Kelly ride for people that she actually F with like that, you know, i.e. Britt, you know, even in Britt's absence, she was always riding for Britt, you know. She didn't stick around for nobody being shady when it came to her people that she, like I said, she rocked with. So I definitely didn't get that Kelly was the culprit. So, and then Angela was like, you know, she turned to Britt, who was sitting right next to her. She's like, you know, I kind of, you know, also know that you and I weren't on the best terms at one time, XYZ. So Britt kind of told her, you know, no, I wouldn't do that either. I'm also a married woman, you know. I would not try to sabotage nobody else's marriage. And so you see Britt and Kelly and Shamia over there, you know, nudging each other over there, because they were sitting next to each other when Britt said, I'm a married woman as well. Kelly busted out laughing, you know. And so, you know, just being petty high school girl-ish between Kelly and Shamia. But Britt told her, you know, I wouldn't do nothing like that. And plus, besides, we were doing good. We were on good terms. So why would I do that? All right, we're going to fast forward because I ain't going to drag this out. So anyway, Drew goes to grab Marcus. So Marcus is in the event now. He's over there with the ladies and stuff. He's about to tell who told, you know, who told, or I mean, he's about to give up the name. And out of nowhere, here comes Charles. Charles came over there and told him, you got to get the F out of here. Charles was so upset. He was like, you got to get the F out of here. You disrespected me as a man. And the guy was trying to say, you know, I apologize to your wife, and I also told her to apologize to you from me. Charles was not trying to hear none of what that man had to say. All Charles wanted to do is get him out of there. Angela got upset, you know, with Charles, because she's telling him, no, leave him alone, leave him alone. He got something to say. Leave him alone, you know. So Angela going back and forth with Charles. She's raising her voice. I've never seen Angela this entire season get upset to the point where her voice is crackling. She's sounding like she's gonna cry. Like she was hot, Tanya, okay? Because she really wanted to get to the bottom. She got to the bottom, but she really wanted it to be put out there to the circle who did or said what, allegedly, who set it up. And we found out that he said it was Phaedra. The guy, Marcus, said it was Phaedra. He said Phaedra is the one who set it all up. He said Phaedra is like the Godfather in Atlanta. And Phaedra was like, what? The Godfather of what? Like, she was definitely appalled. I ain't gonna hold you. When it first happened, I absolutely immediately thought it was Phaedra who set it up. I absolutely did. But now, after seeing this episode, I don't believe it was Phaedra at all. I believe it was production. And I recall mentioning this in my last review, the last week's episode. I wouldn't be surprised if production set this up, because like I said, Angela and Charles, they seem like, you know, the quiet ones in the group as far as their, you know, relationship and marriage. Yeah, we know Charles. We heard the rumors about Charles or whatever the case may be, and some of them might not actually be rumors. They might actually be true. But again, according to Angela, this is, you know, in their past or whatever the case may be. So I'm saying now on the show, you know, they're seemingly like the couple that's just seemingly doing good. They're not bothered. You know, they just seem to be like the laid back chill type. So, and it seemed like everything like throughout the season that was kind of being thrown at their marriage, you know, Angela dodged it. She handled it very well. It didn't break her. It didn't break them, you know. And I feel like production was not satisfied with that. They wanted to stir up some type of drama with Angela and Charles to where the point where it got to this point, you know, where they probably the one who paid him, and they putting it on Phaedra, child. They're using Phaedra as the scapegoat, in my opinion. Now that I've seen this episode, after watching this episode, I feel like they used Phaedra as the scapegoat. I do not believe it was any one of the women in the circle at all. I believe it was production. I believe production set it up. I just like I said y'all before, I believe production set Kenya up. Unfortunately, Kenya, you know, took the bait. She fell for it, and they used Britt to do it. And yeah, so I believe that it wasn't nobody in the group at all. So yeah, I believe Marcus lied on Phaedra. And yeah, so but Phaedra kept denying it and saying, you know, she was just as shocked as the rest of them. She's like, what? And he's like, yeah, you are the one who came and you handed me the envelope. And she's like, what envelope? He's like, the envelope with the info in it. She's like, what info? Oh God, I was just like, yo, this is crazy right now. Like, that's dead crazy. Like, But the way Charles would not let that man speak, he did not want that man in there. Charles was very much guilty of everything that man said to Angela. Charles I feel like he was guilty. Because again, anytime you don't let somebody speak, if you're in the clear and you know your shit is clean, nobody can, you know, like you ain't gonna sit there and argue the person down or keep cutting them off or keep talking over them and stuff like that so they can't get what you don't want them to say out their mouth, you know. And that's what Charles was given. He was definitely given that he was guilty of doing what he said. And after, hold up y'all, let me grab my phone. I'm gonna go on TikTok because I'm gonna let y'all hear this real quick and then we gonna end this off. But I'm gonna go on TikTok and find the guy, Alex, the one who was sitting at the table. I know I mentioned earlier that he came to the event with them, but he didn't. He was at the first meeting that they had. So hold up. I'm gonna let y'all hear a little bit of what he's saying.
Since people keep asking me what really happened, here is what happened from my point of view. This is not to vindicate anybody. This is not to indicate that anybody did anything in particular for any malicious reasons or gain. This is just what happened specifically from my point of view. So as you guys know, I was working at this restaurant and Marcus is my boss. I started working at the restaurant early May, and about 3 weeks into May, I get to work one day. It's a normal day, and there's all of a sudden all this commotion from all the guys in the kitchen about the fact that there's some retired NBA legend that is dining there. I don't follow the NBA, don't really care about the NBA, and with this man being retired, that's clearly before my time. Don't know who he is. This man and this very attractive, much younger woman sit down, they sit on the same side of the booth. They, you know, share off of each other's plates. They're very engaged in one another's company. You know, they've shared out of the same drinking cup. So it's like, I mean, it was just giving date night energy. However, you know, they eat, they pay, they leave, boom, that's it. That's it. Fast forward 4 months later, and Marcus asked me if I want to go to an event. He goes, hey, this is going to be this event. It's for the Real Housewives of Atlanta. It's going to be filmed. You've got an RSVP, so send me your email. I send my email, and boom, I get this. I get the response. I'm invited. You've been selected, whatever you want to call it. I'm there. So, you know, again, we are now in August, and we are at this Wdym Sonoma event. I'm just here to get a little chicken and waffle, drink this mimosa, and watch the housewives kind of go back and forth. You know, of course I was excited. I'm a fan of the show. Who doesn't love the Real Housewives? So, you know, I was excited to go. So, you know, I'm in the background. I'm eating my chicken and waffle. I'm watching them. It was kind of boring. I'm just, you know, I'm there. I'm there enjoying the event. As we're there, I'm not familiar with the newbies. So Marcus is like, oh, obviously this one's Kelly because it's her event. And then he brings out Angela and Charles. It's like that when at the end is Angela. And as he's sitting here telling me about her, he's trying to jog my memory about 4 months prior when we were in the restaurant and the NBA legend had came in. And it's like, I'm like, oh, okay, but again, since I don't follow basketball, it doesn't really dawn on me like, oh, that's the same guy. And then Marcus kind of pieces it together for me. So boom, I go to the bathroom. This is still at the event. I go use the restroom, and when I'm coming back from the restroom, as I walk back into Wdym Sonoma, Marcus is up to Angela talking to her, which is what you guys see on the show when he is telling her, your husband's been into the restaurant with a different woman. So, of course, you know, I'm still standing in the background. He walks back over, and I'm like, what was that all about? And then he proceeds to tell me, you know, the whole, oh, I just went and told her about her husband. And I'm like, I beg your pardon? He was like, yeah, I did, but I don't know if she really heard it or received it. So he was like, I need to make sure she knows what I'm talking about. And I'm like, Marcus, what? That's when...
Okay. So he has further receipts. Y'all could go, you know, check him out on his page. Again, he's on TikTok under his name, Alex. And y'all can get the rest of the story from him. But he actually does show text messages. He shows his email confirmation that he was indeed invited to Kelly's event. He showed that. He also, like I said, showed the text message receipts between him and Angela, I believe, or him and Drew. You know, texting back and forth regarding the matter. So again, you guys could check out his page on TikTok and see, you know, further detail as far as that. But that's, like I said, Charles is absolutely guilty of it, because you do have this other person who wasn't even aware that Charles was you know, a legend in these basketball streets, but he was told that an NBA legend was at the restaurant. He saw with his own eyes too, you know, that Charles was with this woman. You heard him. He said they were sharing a drink together. They looked very much like they were on a date. They sat on the same side of the table, canoodling, you know, like he said, drinking off the same glass, you know. My thing is, as with a lot of men, why are y'all so fucking dumb? Like, why would Charles take this woman to anywhere in Atlanta? Anywhere. Like, I don't care. Anywhere in Atlanta. Like, why? That's a bold ass move. Or it's a move like, I don't give a F. I'm Charles Oakley. I'm Charles Oakley. I'm doing what I want. I don't care who see me. But that's crazy, because your wife, you know, this is what happens. You know, now she got to be the one to try to clean this shit up, and hurting at the same time. Like, that's really whack to me. It really, really is. But at the end of the day, y'all, so on this episode, they really didn't kind of get to the real bottom of it, because he blamed Phaedra and Phaedra denied it, you know. So yeah. So Angela and Phaedra had got into it too, you know, after her name was dropped, you know, and Angela is still adamant, like, Phaedra, you did this. She even said that Phaedra is the one who called her to give her Marcus's full name and all that information as far as that goes. So that was odd. But, you know, at the end of the day, I really still feel like it was production. I don't know. I don't know. Child, Angela and Phaedra, they going back and forth with it. Phaedra's taking low blows because, you know how people, when they get in like a little bit of a tight situation, they try to pull out, you know, all the negative things about you. So Phaedra tells Angie, what about your foreclosures? What about your foreclosed properties or your foreclosure? You know, and Angela like, girl, boy, I talk about my stuff. It, like, you know, what about it? I can talk about it. Ain't nothing to it, you know. So then everybody starts arguing, it seems. Not literally, but then you see Britt and Shamia going at it. You know, Shamia is telling them, you know, how Britt Well, actually, before that happened, I'm sorry, Angela brought up Phaedra not allowing her boys to see her kids. She asked Phaedra, well, do you allow your boys to see their father or whatever? And Phaedra was like, yes, all the time. So Shamia's like, we got to leave the kids out of it. Kelly is screaming, we got to leave the kids out of it. And that's when Shamia brought up the fact that Britt said what she said about her turning up in Miami and kind of faking or lying about Shiloh's condition at the time. So Britt was like, I didn't say she lied. I just said that, when we got to Miami, she was out there partying and still, throwing shots back and shit. She was out there with Kelly throwing shots back. That's what she said. And so Portia asked Shamia, well, what did you say to her? And Shamia was like, I didn't say nothing because I was going to beat her ass. And I'm like, girl, where is the turn up with, where was all this energy for Portia? You trying to again still slide your way, slither your way away from the fact that you gave that girl or you showed Britt those messages. So yeah, I mean, anyway, Britt sitting there like, is that a threat? Like, Britt, I give it to her, child. She be so unbothered, after the whole Kenya debacle and stuff, and she had the other ladies coming at her for whatever their reasons were at the time. Britt just handled it with so much ease, and like, she just seemed like she just not she one of those like, y'all ain't gonna bust a grape, so please. And so Shamia kept getting turned up. You the whore, you the one with the guns and the da. Shamia was turned, honey. I feel like she was just putting on a show for Portia or whatever again, because like I said, Britt blew up her spot. Well, Cynthia is the one who actually really blew it up, but I'm just saying, So everybody's getting up to leave anymore because now it's just one big fiasco. Everybody's arguing with each other. Britt and Mark took their mics off. Then we start seeing, the finishing of the season. I gotta stop saying, I say that so much when I'm doing these reviews. It's crazy. But anyway, and forgive me, y'all. And anyway, all three of those I gotta work on me. And here I'm about to say it again. So the show was closing out. Kelly is still opening her restaurant, still not divorced or whatever. And then we see who was next. I'm probably not going to do it in no particular order, child. But we see Shamia. They said Shamia, album dropped in March of 2025 or something like that. So, and that they found a new surrogate to carry her baby boy, so we wish them well. Also, Angela has sold 3 of her homes and she lost 2 of the homes, so that's not bad. I was right in the beginning, there was 5 homes, but that's not bad. So she lost 2 of the homes, and she's on to her next business venture, her next new business venture, which is Fanji. They said it's a line of fans, so I'm thinking like fans, either handheld fans, or it could be actual portable fans. I don't know. Phaedra, of course, they said Phaedra is still booked and busy until her kids retire her, and that she's still, or Chi-Chi is still satisfying her sweet tooth child. They still together. Then you see Portia, Cynthia, and I forget who else was standing there talking. Oh, I think it was Drew. Basically talking about, Cynthia saying she's sorry about telling Shamia what was said, because Portia was like, you weren't supposed to tell her. You weren't supposed to tell her. So anyway, that's pretty much that, you guys. We see, 5 months later down the line, they kind of fast forward to 5 months later, Portia ultimately wins the right to film in Simon's home. So at home is absolutely beautiful, child. And she walking around there like she's just Joan Cleaver. I think that's the lady's name, minus the husband. But the house is very, very nice. Pilar is so pretty. Oh my gosh, she's such a doll baby too. So everybody looks so happy. Portia's mother's over there. She up in the place. Okay. And yeah, so they kind of ended off with that. Portia and her mom sitting down talking about it and talking about the divorce coming to an end finally, which they are finally divorced. Thank you, Jesus. Simon and Portia are finally divorced, you guys. He's still living his best life, just back in Dubai and or Nigeria, where he's from. Last I checked, he was in Dubai on his birthday chilling, okay? Because who want to be here? Okay, like like Ice did him a whole favor. He done came and done what he was supposed to do here, made him some money, made him a name for himself, and now y'all want to send him back? Cool, Simon straight. He ain't bothered at all. He is straight, okay, and he damn sure better off over there than he is over here. Period. But anyway, that's it, you guys. That was this season. I actually liked this season. I really, really did. I ain't even gonna hold you. I actually enjoyed the season. In the beginning, I was mad because Kenya wasn't on it, and I'm still feeling away because I still want to see Kenya. But I don't necessarily want to see Kenya back on Housewives of Atlanta anymore. I'd rather see Kenya doing other Kenya shit. I also heard that they closed down her location to her hair salon or hair spa and made it a chicken spot, child. That's what I heard through the TikTok streets. I don't know how true that is, but yeah, I don't want to see Kenya come back to this show because for what? For what? It won't be the same, and you know, I do wish she would have gotten a chance to go to the reunion though, and I do wish Britt was at the reunion too. I absolutely do, because I want Britt to produce those receipts that I know she has. She might not have them, you know, like in receipt form, but I feel like Britt had a lot more to say to Shamia or about Shamia and Portia's situation. So unfortunately, we will never know, you know, what all further took place as far as that, guys. But the season is over. Season 16 is a wrap, child. So we're going to move on to the reunion. I think this is a 3-part reunion, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, so far it looks like it's going to be a good little watch. I know I said before, I got to fill it out before I know if I'm going to review the reunion or not. And I still feel that way. So I'm absolutely going to be watching next weekend's episode of the first reunion, reunion part 1. And yeah, you guys, so you may or may not see me back on here with the review for that. Probably, more than likely you will, but I don't know. I ain't making no promises. I did enjoy, this was my first time doing any reviews of any of my favorite shows that I like to watch, and I really did have a good time doing it, you guys. So this more than likely won't be my last time reviewing some shows. It's going to be it for a minute because I do vlog, so that also does take up a lot of my time, you know, here on camera. So yeah, but anyway, you guys, I thank you guys so much for rocking with me this entire season. Thank you for watching. Thank you for, you know, your comments or whatever down below. And thank you for those who thought I was doing a good job. So I appreciate you all. Again, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to check out my vlogs on this same very channel, So Effortlessly Sexy. And for the time being, that's just what it's going to be with it, y'all. I am going to create a next channel, and right here on YouTube. But I'm focusing still on this one for right now. I'm not going to do too much and have myself spread it thin. So, but anyway, enough about me, y'all, because I could go on all day about me. Oh gosh, let me cut it out with you guys. But y'all, I'm gonna thank you again for watching, and I will see you in my next video, whether it's my vlog or whether it's the review to part 1 of the reunion. I'll see you then. Peace out.